September 13th, 1942. Location: Stalingrad. The Volga River runs red as over 2 million soldiers and civilians brace for a siege so brutal even rats reportedly refuse to stay. German and Soviet forces clash in apocalyptic street fighting, where death is measured in meters. Molotov cocktails and bolt-action rifles will decide who lives another hour. But now imagine this. From above the clouds, a black triangle appears. Silent, radar invisible, capable of dropping 16-joint direct attack munition from 50,000 feet. And none of these poor souls have ever even seen a jet before. What happens if one B-2 Spirit stealth bomber joins the Battle of Stalingrad? By the autumn of 1942, Stalingrad was less a city and more a furnace. The Germans had pushed deep into Soviet territory under Operation Barbarossa, and Hitler fixated on Stalingrad as both a strategic crossing of the Volga and a symbolic prize. Named after his nemesis, after all. Facing him was General Vasily Chukov, whose orders were brutal and clear. Not one step back. Soviet forces dug in among the rubble. Snipers perched in hollowed-out factories. Machine gun nests behind piles of corpses. Civilians were pressed into firefighting and ammo runs. The Germans brought the Sixth Army. Over 300,000 men, armed with Panzer IV tanks, MG-34 machine guns, and the deadly Stuka dive bomber. The Soviets countered with T-34, PPSH-41 submachine guns, and an iron grip on urban warfare. Close-quarter combat was so intense it earned a new term, Rattenkrieg, meaning rat war. Entire battles were fought over single staircases. Some buildings changed hands 15 times in a day. Communications were so unreliable that whole regiments sometimes fought different enemies in different districts, completely unaware of each other. Now imagine dropping a 21st century stealth bomber into that chaos. An angel or demon from a future where war is silent, surgical, and invisible. Meet the B-2 Spirit. Built by Northrop Grumman, first flown in 1989, and designed to penetrate the most advanced air defenses in the world. Not to sneak up on a column of panzers in 1942. It weighs 160,000 pounds empty. Fully loaded, over 337,000 pounds. Its wings stretch an incredible 172 feet, wider than the entire length of a Boeing 757. It cruises at high subsonic speeds, around 560 miles per hour, with a range of 6,000 nautical miles without refueling. At 50,000 feet, it's just a shadow on radar, assuming radar even exists in this scenario. Because that's the real kicker. In 1942, German radar capabilities were primitive and mostly ground-based, used for early warning across Europe. The Soviets? Practically nothing. And the B-2's radar cross-section? Just 0.1 square meters. That's smaller than a bird. For context, the German Würzburg radar of the time had a detection range of about 25 miles for large, slow aircraft. The B-2 would be a ghost. Its weapons bay? Terrifying. It can carry 16 Joint Direct Attack Munitions, JDAM, each a 2,000-pound GPS-guided bomb with an accuracy radius under 13 meters. These would make a mockery of 1940s bombing runs, which were so inaccurate the Luftwaffe often needed entire squadrons to hit a city block. The B-2's avionics suite includes a synthetic aperture radar, terrain-following flight systems, satellite navigation, and encrypted comms, all of which are completely useless here. No GPS, no satellites, no secure data links. The crew? Flying blind. Well-trained, sure, but stuck in a sky that doesn't speak their language. And yet, the bomber still has eyes. Its internal sensors can map terrain in real time. And once targets are visually acquired, the bombs don't care what century they're in. A panzer division? Gone. Artillery batteries? Vaporized. Entire supply lines? Erased before anyone hears the engines. To the soldiers below, it would be biblical. A black triangle appearing silently from the heavens, dropping explosives with surgical precision and vanishing without warning. The Luftwaffe couldn't intercept it. Nothing in the sky in 1942 even breaks 400 miles per hour, and none of them fly above 30,000 feet. To the Germans, it's a nightmare. To the Soviets, maybe salvation. But no one understands what it is. Dawn breaks over Stalingrad. Smoke curls from shell-pocked buildings, and the Volga flows sluggishly beneath floating debris. German artillery thunders from the western heights, hammering Soviet positions in the tractor factory. Infantry prepare for another bloody push through twisted metal and ice-caked rubble. Then silence, just for a second, and then impact. No warning, no engine whine, no dive-bombing sirens, just boom. A warehouse harboring German logistics vaporizes in a single, precise flash. Seconds later, another strike obliterates a panzer assembly point. Then the anti-aircraft battery gone. The horizon flashes 16 times in under 2 minutes. Each explosion as pinpointed as a sniper's shot, but 2,000 pounds heavier. Soviet troops dive for cover. German officers scramble to locate the attacker. Radio operators report no aircraft on radar. Spotters see nothing. The sky is empty. To the Luftwaffe, it's witchcraft. Messerschmitt Bf-109 scramble from makeshift airfields, clawing upward at a meager 370 miles per hour. But the B-2 is already gone, invisible to sight, immune to interception, cruising 15,000 feet above the fight. And then it loops around. A second strike wave. This time, targeting fuel depots, supply trucks, and the Feldgendarmerie headquarters. It doesn't level the city, it doesn't have to. It surgically unravels the German war machine with 21st century precision. German soldiers begin retreating from forward positions not from fear of Soviet attacks, but because their radios have gone silent, their command chains severed, and the sky seems to kill at random. To the Red Army, it's divine intervention. To the Germans, it's terror. A war of attrition has just met a weapon designed to end wars before they begin. But before we hand Stalingrad over to one flying triangle, let's talk logistics. The B-2 Spirit runs on JP-8 jet fuel, not crude oil, diesel, or vodka. Even if you siphoned every tank in the Soviet Union, you wouldn't brew the cocktail this bomber needs. No refueling tankers exist in 1942, and once its 6,000 nautical mile range runs dry, it's a glider the size of a McDonald's. Then there's the ground crew, all 130 of them. The B-2 needs climate-controlled hangars, specialized diagnostic tools, software calibration, and maintenance equipment so classified, it's chained to Air Force personnel in real life. If even one component fails, say a radar-absorbing panel peels off, the entire stealth advantage is compromised. Navigation. Remember, GPS is a Cold War baby. Without satellites, the bomber relies on inertial guidance and onboard visuals. That's fine at 50,000 feet in Kansas. Not ideal when trying to avoid Soviet flak while guessing at 1940s maps drawn by candlelight. Ammunition is another hard stop. 16 JDAM might decimate a battalion, but that's a one-shot deal. No reloads unless the crew finds a functioning 21st century Air Force base in the middle of Stalin's Russia, and spoiler, they won't. Then there's the psychological pressure. The B-2 was built to avoid detection. Here, it's mythical. The pilot and crew are now military anomalies with no communications, no intel support, and no idea which uniforms are friendly. A single bad ID, and they might obliterate a Soviet command post by accident. Friendly fire from the future. And finally, the enemy adapts. The Germans start spreading out assets, digging deeper bunkers, moving at night. When technology stuns, smart opponents scatter. The B-2 can shock a battlefield, but it can't sustain a war. One B-2, one modern ghost in the skies. What happens next? Let's break it into 3 plausible timelines. Outcome A. Tactical victory. The B-2 delivers its full payload on day 1. The results are devastating. German supply lines across the Don are annihilated. Armored divisions reduced to scrap. Bridges destroyed with surgical precision. Morale among Wehrmacht troops plummets. Soviet counterattacks, once suicidal, now succeed as German coordination collapses. With that momentum, the Red Army breaks the siege weeks earlier. The Sixth Army never digs in for winter. Stalingrad doesn't become a 6-month bloodbath. Instead, it's a Soviet victory by November. German losses are still massive, but maybe 100,000 less than history recorded. However, the B-2 returns to base with empty bays and no fuel. It never flies again. Outcome B, strategic stalemate. The Germans adapt. They disperse supply chains, camouflage assets, relocate command centers underground. The B-2 strikes once, then disappears. The shock wears off. Rumors fly. The Soviets have a secret weapon, a demon from the sky, but the Red Army can't replicate the miracle. The bomber becomes a legend, not a tool. Its lack of logistical support renders it inert. The battle drags on. Thousands more die in the ice and rubble. The war ends just as it did at an unspeakable cost. The B-2's impact is real but fleeting. History adjusts, not pivots. Outcome C, historical paradox. The bomber's arrival shatters the psychological fabric of war. German troops begin mass desertions, believing supernatural weapons are now involved. Soviet commanders become suspicious, assuming it's a Western spy aircraft. Stalin demands its capture. NKVD units are ordered to track the crew. Confusion turns into chaos. Soviet soldiers shoot at the B-2 during its return pass. Friendly fire incidents skyrocket. Entire regiments retreat from both enemies and the sky. Stalin, unable to explain or control this anomaly, begins purging officers again. In this version, the B-2 doesn't change the outcome of Stalingrad. It breaks the coherence of both sides, rewriting history not through victory, but through instability. So, could one stealth bomber win the Battle of Stalingrad? Yes, for a day. Maybe even for a week. But war, especially one like this, isn't a highlight reel. It's logistics, morale, weather, and the ability to fight tomorrow. The B-2 Spirit is a precision instrument designed for the most advanced battlefield on Earth. Not the blood and rubble attrition of 1942. It would dominate tactically, confuse the enemy, inspire Soviet troops, strike fear. But it would also run out of fuel, spare parts, and bombs with no supply chain to save it. And without a military ecosystem to support it, the B-2 is just an overqualified ghost. What it teaches us is humbling. Technology wins battles, but infrastructure wins wars. And sometimes the future doesn't outgun the past, it just doesn't fit inside it. Stalingrad still turns. History grinds forward. But now, with a contrail from the 21st century slicing through the smoke. So, could a stealth bomber change the fate of Stalingrad? Tactically, sure. Strategically, that's where things get messy. But I want to hear your version of history. What happens next if this black triangle keeps flying? Drop your theory in the comments, the weirder the better. And if this timeline twist tickled your brain, make sure to subscribe for more tech versus history battles. But don't stop here. If you love this, you'll definitely want to see what happens when an F-35 faces off against 600,000 French troops with muskets. Click the video on screen now. Could a single F-35 take out Napoleon's Grand Army? Let's just say, Waterloo's about to get supersonic.